They took my money and told me I should be grateful I was still alive. That's exactly how the young man at the counter phrased it. You'll be gone before this even matters. He laughed, turning to his coworker. We should be charging rent just for standing in line. My name is Martha Danvers. I was 78 years old, holding a receipt for medication I had paid for but never received. The pharmacy was small, tucked between a nail salon and a dry cleaner, just a short walk from my home. Once upon a time, it was the kind of shop that knew your name, remembered your husband's favorite cough drops. But new owners had taken over. Now it was glass counters and hollow smiles. Still, I believed in giving people the benefit of the doubt. Maybe the boy had a bad day. Maybe I did. I paid for it this morning, I said quietly, handing over my bank confirmation. It's a Liquis. My prescription hasn't changed. The boy, hardly older than my granddaughter, glanced at the screen and shrugged. Shipments in the back, not unpacked yet. Come back Monday. It was Thursday. He didn't look up again. Behind me, someone sighed, another voice muttered about people wasting time in line. I stayed silent, eyes fixed on the bag behind the glass with my name on it. So close but not mine. Can I get a refund then? I asked. He smirked. Refunds are for returns. You didn't get anything. Heat rose up my neck, not from shame, not even anger, but from the weight of being dismissed in real time. Then let me speak to the manager. That's me, he said with a grin. Welcome to the future. I walked out without medicine, without money, without raising my voice. The summer heat was breaking, leaves stirring in the late breeze. On my porch, shoes still on, I sat holding the receipt like a useless bandage. My husband and I had once run an apothecary, never just a pharmacy. We listened, advised, cared. Harold kept handwritten notes about each customer's allergies and preferences. When he passed away, I closed the shop myself. No one else deserved to carry that weight of love. I thought I had let it go. Later, I checked my account. The payment cleared. No refund. No shipment. The money was gone, the pills withheld. When did it become acceptable to laugh at age? To call cruelty policy? I wasn't angry yet, only aware. Aware of how quietly the world erases you once you are no longer useful. That night I couldn't sleep, replaying the sight of that bag mocking me from behind the counter. In the morning, Dolores from across the street called. You went to Maple Pharmacy, didn't you? Yes. They did the same to me. Took my money for insulin, then said it expired when I came back. No refund. No medicine. I asked who owned it now. She hesitated. Roy Holloway, you remember him? Used to do deliveries for Harold. Always smelled of peppermint gum. I did remember. And I remembered something else. The lease Harold and I signed in 2009, with a clause protecting the property if community standards were ever violated. My name was still on that paperwork. For the first time in years, I smiled, not from spite, but from remembering who I was and that I still mattered. By noon, I was at the registrar's office, contract in hand. The clerk, surprised, confirmed the clause was legally binding. Complaints had already piled up. If I filed, they wouldn't dismiss it. Walking home, I stopped at the bakery. Margaret, powdered sugar on her sleeves, gave me a muffin on the house. We all know what that pharmacy's become, she said. Everyone stays quiet because they think they're alone. Not anymore, I told her. That afternoon, I visited Walter Pennington, the lawyer who once stood by my family. Laying the folder on his desk, I told him, I don't want revenge, but I won't be erased by a boy I once handed lemon drops to behind my husband's counter. A Walter looked at me and smiled. Still a Danvers. For the first time in a long while, I felt awake. Walter leaned back, fingers steepled. If we move forward, you'll probably get the property back. But it won't be quiet. Are you prepared for that? I held his gaze. Do you remember the fire in '88? He blinked. Of course. Do you remember how I kept the store running out of our garage for 6 weeks? Yes! Then don't ask me if I'm ready. A Walter nodded slowly. All right. I'll draft the initial filing. We'll submit it by Friday, and I'll notify the state board about the pharmacy license. If they're mistreating customers, that's a separate violation. I walked home, not from exhaustion but from the weight of choices and history pressing against me. On the porch, I sat in the old rocker while the sun dipped low. A child rode by on her bicycle and waved. I waved back, Then I opened the muffin from Margaret, ate it slowly, and for the first time in years it didn't taste like a memory. By Friday morning, Walter's packet arrived at a formal claim, a repossession notice, and a draft letter to the pharmacy board. A note in his handwriting ran along the margin, "Still got it, Martha." I stared at the papers, not hesitating, just remembering. I thought back to when Roy first walked into our apothecary at 16, nervous, shoulders slouched, carrying a note from his mother. "He's trying. Please give him something to do." Harold gave him deliveries that same day. "He needs structure, not sympathy," Harold had said. And Roy had grown for a time, learned quickly, respectfully. Later, when Harold passed and I closed the shop, Roy asked to lease it. I agreed, not because of his plan, but because of the boy he once was. Now my trust was in paperwork. The next day I visited the bank. The manager, who still remembered me, stood as I entered. "Miss Danvers, what can I help you with?" "I need records from a 2019 transfer. Business property." He printed the files. There was Roy's signature, eager. Shaky, payment schedules full of delays and corrections. Then one line, 2 years back, renegotiated, community terms voided. Only it wasn't my signature. It was forged. I stared at the page, then slid it back. "I'll need a notarized copy." The manager's expression tightened. "Of course, right away." Outside, I sat by the bronze plaque honoring Harold's service to the town. 27 years etched in metal. My fingers came away dusty. A young woman passed with headphones, didn't glance my way. To her, I was only an old woman clutching a folder. Let her wonder. That evening, I called the municipal board, left a message, then emailed the notarized copy. As Walter would have said, it wasn't just personal anymore. It was public interest. By Sunday, the call came. A city clerk named Shannon, bright voice, tight tone. "Miss Danvers, we've reviewed your documents. We'll need to verify. Please come to my office Monday and bring your attorney." I spent Sunday cleaning, not from nerves, but from rhythm, dusting shelves, straightening drawers. Inside these walls, order was still mine. That afternoon, Carol from 2 streets over knocked with a bag of stew. "I figured you don't cook much anymore," she said. "I cook just fine," she flushed. "I didn't mean." "I know." I stepped aside. "Come in." We ate together. She filled the silence with stories. Her son's divorce, her knee surgery, the library's new hours. When she circled back to the pharmacy, I simply said, "I'm handling it." "You're suing them?" "Not exactly." "You're not going to make a scene, are you?" I looked at her. "Carol, I am the scene." She didn't understand. That was fine. That evening the phone rang. Unknown number. "Yes." Then, "Miss Danvers, it's Roy." His voice was lower now, careful. I said nothing. "I heard you filed something. If there's been a misunderstanding, we can talk. We used to be close." "Yes. You were 16 then. You didn't insult strangers." "My staff. Look, I'm not saying they were right. I'm saying don't ruin my life over one bad day." I smiled faintly. "Oh, Roy, this isn't about your bad day." And I hung up. The municipal building on Main hadn't changed in half a century. The carpets still smelled of paper and dust. The chairs still groaned. I arrived early. Shannon was waiting, clipboard pressed to her chest like a shield. "Miss Danvers, thank you for coming. I prefer not to do this over the phone." We walked to a side office. A young man with a tight tie introduced himself as Mr. Vaughn from legal. I placed my folder on the table. Lease, payment schedule, notarized forgery. Shannon flipped through the pages, frowning. Vaughn leaned over, whispered something. She nodded. "This clause 12, she said. "We've never had it invoked. Doesn't mean it isn't valid. Do you have supporting statements about customer mistreatment?" "Yes." 2 neighbors denied paid prescriptions. "Plus, a reporter at the local paper is collecting testimony." Yvonne leaned back. "This could go public. I imagine it will." Shannon looked at me directly. "And your goal?" "Reinstatement of property. Revocation of Roy Holloway's license in town, and transfer of the premises to a senior community dispensary. At cost, no profit." Yvonne blinked. "You want to give it away?" I wanted to serve who it was meant to serve. There wasn't much they could argue. When I left, the receptionist gave me a quiet nod. Not respect, maybe, but recognition. I'd take that. The next morning at Walter's office, he said, "You made an impression. Shannon's already been in touch." Off the record, Vaughn thinks the forgery alone is enough. You have momentum. Then let's keep going. They may offer a compromise. Roy steps back from management but keeps ownership. No. Walter nodded knowingly. He handed me another paper. This is for a temporary injunction. It freezes all transactions on the property until resolution. I signed. That afternoon, I walked Silver Lane not to buy, just to see. The sidewalks Harold and I once swept together. The pharmacy ahead, bright and sterile. A couple exited, muttering about poor service. I let them pass. Inside, I saw Roy. He hadn't noticed me yet. Until he did, our eyes locked. And in that instant, I saw it, the flicker. The realization. He knew I hadn't backed down. I didn't go in. I just kept walking. By evening, the local paper had called. "Miss Danvers," she said over the phone, "I've been hearing things. Would you be open to sharing your side?" If I agreed, I promised myself I'd be clear. No bitterness, just truth. The next morning, she arrived at my porch. I told her everything, without exaggeration, without softening. At one point she asked, "Why not just walk away?" I met her eyes. People think silence is dignity. That age means staying quiet. But sometimes real dignity is refusing to look away. She didn't write that down, but I saw it reach her. Before leaving, she said, "You remind me of my grandmother." I smiled. By Monday, her article was published. No bold headlines, no drama, just a calm piece in the middle of page 3. Former shop owner takes legal action against local pharmacy. Names weren't printed, but everyone knew. I read it once, folded it, and tucked it away. That afternoon, Dolores knocked at my door with a container of chicken salad. "You shouldn't have to make lunch," she said quietly. She lingered, guilt in her eyes. "I think about all the times I should have spoken up." I nodded. I didn't either. Not until silence cost too much. Later, the city's letter arrived. The injunction was approved. Roy couldn't touch the property. Walter called soon after. "It started," he said. Roy wouldn't take it quietly. I told him I didn't fear noise, I'd lived through worse. That evening, Roy called. "Are you enjoying this?" His voice shook. "No," I answered. But was the forged signature not personal? He had no reply. I reminded him my husband built that store, and Roy had signed away my name without right. He hung up. I didn't feel victorious, only steady. The next day, neighbors nodded. One man shook my hand, saying only, "Good for you." Amanda, at the diner, told me more people were sharing their own stories. I walked past the shuttered pharmacy and found a woman crying outside with a pharmacy bag. Insurance denied. Forced to pay out of pocket. "Keep the receipt," I told her. She recognized me from the paper. "You're doing something good." I shook my head. "Just something necessary." But midweek, a photo of me sitting beside her made its way online. Comments mixed, support, criticism, gossip. I didn't reply. Towns will talk. Walter later brought documents. The board had opened an investigation. Roy blamed a temp, but his name was on the paperwork. "They'll move slowly," Walter said. "That's fine," I replied. "I'd wait." That night, I opened Harold's old ledgers. Names, dates, prescriptions, payments in eggs or sweet potatoes. We never turned anyone away. Holding the book, I thought about what to do next. The following morning, I called the municipal board. If the property returns to me, I want it turned into a public dispensary, affordable, especially for seniors. No markup, silence on the other end. Then, "That's remarkable." It didn't feel remarkable. It just felt right. I didn't feel triumphant. I only felt steady. The first notice arrived on a Thursday, slipped through my mail slot in a plain envelope sealed with the city crest. The letter inside was blunt. The license for Holloway Holdings LLC was suspended pending review. It wasn't permanent, but it was the first real step. I read it twice, folded it, and tucked it beneath the sugar bowl on my kitchen table. It wasn't something to display. It was simply a beginning. I made tea, sliced a pear, and let the radio play softly. I ate slowly, like someone who no longer had to prove anything. By afternoon, the news had spread. Passing cars slowed. A woman honked once. I didn't wave. I didn't need to. At 4, Walter called. "They're digging into the old files. Complaints buried for years, dozens of them. Not buried anymore." His voice wasn't thrilled. It was respectful, like he was watching something overdue finally surface. That evening, Roy knocked on my porch. He wore a pressed shirt and carried a gift bag, as though years of choices could be undone with chamomile tea. "Martha," he said, no titles. He tried to apologize, said things had gotten out of hand. I listened, but when he offered the bag, I asked, "You think this is about sleep?" His words faltered. I reminded him. He forged papers, overcharged for medicine, insulted people who came for help. Those weren't mistakes, Roy. They were decisions. He shifted, trying to bridge years with a single visit. It wasn't enough. He left the tea behind. That night, I brewed it anyway, not as forgiveness, but curiosity. It tasted of nothing. Friday morning, Shannon called. The city was preparing to take temporary control of the property. 60 days, maybe longer, while my proposal was reviewed. "Residents are stepping forward," she said. "People who never filed complaints are giving statements. You've started something." I answered simply, "It's not about me." But she was right. It had started here. Later, a courier delivered 2 tarnished keys in a sealed envelope. No ceremony, just quiet authority. I held them in my hand, then dropped them into the same ceramic bowl where Harold once kept his. At sunrise the next morning, I walked to Silver Lane. The building sat in silence, blinds crooked, windows clouded with dust. I unlocked the door. The air was sharp with chemicals masking something stale. Empty shelves, fake posters, cold light. Behind the counter, a small safe still held receipts and tapes. Proof of years he'd rather erase. I left them. I wasn't here to punish. I was here to restore. I stood in the middle of the empty floor and pictured what it once was. Wooden shelves, a bell over the door, Harold in his white coat, me balancing the ledgers. People didn't just come for medicine, they came for patience, for dignity. That was worth more than money. And now it was worth giving back. The next day, I returned with a broom and gloves. The work was slow but familiar, sweeping, scrubbing, polishing. By the 3rd day, the windows shone again. Carol stopped by with coffee, skeptical. "You're not reopening, are you?" "Not as it was," I said. "Something new, something fair." She frowned, but stayed, sweeping the sidewalk before she left. By week's end, others came too. Folding chairs, spare bandages, offers of help. I didn't ask, they just appeared. I started a spiral notebook labeled needs. People wrote requests: reading glasses, compression socks, a chair to rest at the bus stop. Human things. By the 3rd day, the pages were full. Roy filed appeals, but the board rejected them. Loss of community trust, the notice said. They never mentioned my name, but I was in every word. 2 weeks later, Shannon called again. "The council has decided. The building will become a non-profit dispensary. You'll be its founding steward." The words settled like stones, solid, unshakable. That evening I walked back to Silver Lane. The door had fresh paint, and a neighbor had hung a new bell above the entrance. It chimed when I stepped inside. The space was bright, empty, waiting. On the counter sat the needs notebook. A new line had been added in someone's handwriting: "Thank you for reminding us we matter." No signature. None was needed. The town council always met in the old courthouse, the one with the broken clock that hadn't ticked in years. I showed up early, not to be noticed, but to make sure I had a seat. The meeting room was smaller than most would expect. Just 2 rows of folding chairs, a long oak table, and a podium that shook if someone leaned on it. I'd stood at that podium once before, back in 1982, when they tried to close the post office. I wasn't nervous then, and I wasn't nervous now. Shannon greeted me at the door, clipboard in hand. "You're on the agenda. Item 4, she said. "I'm not here to talk unless it's needed. You might want to." I sat in the 2nd row. The 1st row was full. 2 realtors, a teacher, a parks employee. None of them looked at me, but they knew why I was there. The meeting began. Zoning request, sidewalks, playground funding. Then came item 4, converting the old Holloway Pharmacy into a community dispensary for seniors and low-income residents. Murmurs filled the room. A man asked if the owner had agreed. Shannon explained the city held temporary rights while legal transfer was in progress. Then she looked at me. I stood, but didn't go to the podium. "My name is Martha Danver. I'm 78. My husband and I once ran that pharmacy with honesty. Later it became a place where people were denied dignity. I'm not asking for punishment. I'm asking for restoration. That building was meant to serve this town. Let it do so again." Silence. Then a single clap. Another followed. The motion passed firmly, though not unanimously. Later, as people filed out, some shook my hand, others didn't. That didn't matter. I wasn't there for applause. I was there to reclaim something the town had lost. By the next week, the old sign was gone. Nothing new replaced it yet. Inside, shelves began to fill with quiet donations, reading glasses, cough drops, warm socks. No money changed hands. People gave what they could, and others took what they needed. It wasn't about fixing everything. It was about restoring care and trust. Day by day, the space grew. Folding chairs by the window, a bookshelf with large print novels, a retired nurse offering free checkups. I didn't organize it all. I just unlocked the door each morning and kept the lights on. One man, Clarence, came in needing a knee brace. Months before, he'd been turned away and mocked. Now, he picked up a brace and asked, "Is this for me?" "It's why it's there," I told him. He left taller than he arrived. Soon after, Walter came with final papers. The city had officially transferred ownership, naming me founding steward. He told me I didn't have to keep running it forever. "I'm not tired yet," I said. This wasn't about a pharmacy anymore. It was about memory, dignity, and giving people back a place that cared. Walter laughed when I told him that some things are between a man and his reflection. "That's a good line," he said. "Not a line," I replied. "Just the truth." After he left, I sat holding the papers, running my fingers across the raised seal. It wasn't pride or triumph that I felt. Just a quiet peace, like noticing that the silence in your own house no longer feels heavy, just real. The town scheduled an opening for the second Tuesday in October. I hadn't asked for it, but they planned the whole thing. Cookies on a folding table, a borrowed pair of gold-handled scissors, and a short press release. I arrived early as usual. Neighbors trickled in. No speeches, no grand ceremony. Just people. Amanda was there with a camera, not a notebook. "Want a picture?" she asked softly. "If you must," I said. One click, and that was enough. At 10 sharp, Shannon spoke. "This isn't about building new or tearing down. It's about bringing something back. Restoring." Then she thanked me. The applause that followed was small, unpolished, but real. They asked me to cut the ribbon. The scissors were awkward, the ribbon stiff, but I managed. Just like that, the doors were open. Inside, people wandered quietly, picking up reading glasses, tissues, tins of balm. No one asked what the rules were. They already understood. Clarence brought vitamins he couldn't use. A woman I didn't know left 2 handmade scarves in the bin and slipped away. Even Roy's mother appeared, nodded once at me and left. I understood what that nod meant. Later, a young woman came in carrying a child. She told me her grandmother used to come here. She always said you made her feel like the only one in the room. She left a box of unopened supplies. "They belong here," she said. I touched her hand. "So do you." By November, people brought food as well as medicine. A corner shelf became a pantry. One woman took a jar of peanut butter and cried. I didn't ask why. We had space heaters now, mismatched and dented but warm. No one tracked what came in or what went out. This wasn't about numbers. It was about weathering together. Letters started appearing under the door. One read, "I came for toothpaste but found something else. Thank you for making space for people like me." I pinned it above the counter. Some truths deserve to stay visible. As winter deepened, chairs moved closer. Rugs layered the floor and people lingered longer. Donations arrived in bags, boxes, even notes. Not for recognition, just to share in something unspoken. Carol once said, "Maybe we don't want to be left alone. Maybe we just want to be asked first." Her words stayed with me. By Christmas, the shelves looked steady. The heaters hummed like old friends and a candle burned in the window. No wreath, no decoration, just a small light in a glass jar. People noticed. They didn't ask why. They stayed longer. Now, months later, I sit here writing this. Not because I need my name remembered, but because someone out there might be wondering if it's too late. Too late to fix something. Too late to matter. Too late to stand up. It isn't. You don't need a building. Just a chair, a window, and the willingness to keep the light on. Someone will step inside. And when they do, don't ask what they need. Just let them belong.